The stars looked different today. Admiral Kang Minho stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the empty space around them. His fleet of 12 human vessels moved slowly through the dark between worlds. They were not running from anything. They were not chasing anyone either. They were just traveling, like humans had done for the past 50 years since leaving Earth. "Sir, we have something on the scanner," said his communications officer. The young woman looked at her screen with wide eyes. "It's big, really big." Kang walked over to look at the readings. The numbers made him smile a little. Whatever was coming toward them was at least 10 times bigger than his largest ship. Most people would be scared. Kang felt something else entirely. "How many ships?" he asked. "Looks like 30 or 40, sir. They're moving fast." "Good," Kang said. His crew looked at him strangely. Their admiral seemed almost happy about this news. "Send a message to all ships. Tell them to get ready for visitors." Captain Lee Soman was having coffee when the message came through. She commanded the Soul's Pride, one of the newer ships in their small fleet. When she heard about the approaching vessels, she started grinning. Her crew thought she had gone. "Crazy! Captain," said her second-in-command, "should we prepare weapons?" "Of course," Lee said, still smiling. "But also prepare the good coffee. We might have guests soon." The alien ships came out of hyperspace like thunder. They were massive, metal beasts covered in weapons and armor. Each one could probably destroy a small moon. They moved into formation around the human fleet, like wolves surrounding sheep. The largest alien ship was bigger than a city. Strange symbols covered its dark hull. Hundreds of weapon ports pointed at the human vessels. It looked like something, built for war and nothing else. Inside that ship, War Commander Thektar studied the small human fleet on his screens. These creatures looked pathetic. Their ships were tiny and seemed to be held together with metal patches. Some parts looked like they had been welded on by someone who did not know what they were doing. "These humans are primitive," said his weapons officer. "We could destroy them all in minutes." Thektar nodded. This would be easy. The Vorthak Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. These humans would surrender quickly once they saw the power they faced. "Open communications," he ordered. "Let them see what real power looks like." The main screen on every human ship suddenly showed the same image. A tall alien creature with gray skin and 4 arms stood in front of them. Its eyes were black and cold. Behind it, rows of alien soldiers stood at attention. "Primitive humans," the alien said in a voice like grinding metal. "You have entered space that belongs to the mighty Vorthak Empire. I am War Commander Thektar. You will surrender your ships immediately or be destroyed." On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kang listened to these words. Then he did something that confused everyone watching. He started to smile. Not just a small smile, but a big grin that made his eyes crinkle. "Did you hear that?" Kang said to his crew. "They want us to surrender." His communications officer, a young woman named Park Gina, began to giggle. She tried to stop herself, but could not. Soon, half the bridge crew was fighting not to laugh. Captain Lee's reaction was even stronger. When she heard the alien demand, she burst out laughing. Her crew stared at her in shock. Their captain was laughing at aliens who could blast them into space dust. "Sir," Lee said into her communicator, trying to control her voice, "should I respond to their request?" "Yes," came Kang's voice over the radio. Even through the static, they could hear that he was still smiling. "Be polite. Tell them we received their message." Lee activated her ship's transmitter. On the alien flagship, Thektar watched as a human female appeared on his screen. She had short black hair and dark eyes that seemed to sparkle with some inner joke. "War Commander Thektar," she said, and her voice was perfectly calm and professional. "This is Captain Lee Soman of the Soul's Pride. We have received your message loud and clear." Thektar waited for her to continue. He expected begging or threats or maybe tears. Instead, the human just kept smiling at him like she had heard the funniest joke in the galaxy. "And?" Thektar demanded. "And we appreciate you taking the time to introduce yourselves," Lee said. "It's not often we meet new neighbors out here." The alien war commander felt confused. This was not how conquests usually went. Most species either attacked immediately or surrendered in terror. These humans seemed to be treating this like a social visit. "You do not understand," Thektar said, making his voice more threatening. "We are not here to make friends. We are here to claim this system for the Empire. You will surrender or die." Lee's smile got even bigger. "Oh, we understand perfectly. You want our ships. That is correct. And if we say no, then we will take them from your dead bodies." Lee actually clapped her hands together like a child who had just been told she could have ice cream. "How exciting! It's been so long since anyone wanted to fight us." Thektar's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. Fight them? These humans had 12 small ships against his battle fleet. It would not even be a fight. It would be target practice. On Yao. Other human ships, similar conversations were happening. The aliens kept demanding surrender, and the humans kept acting like this was the best news they had heard in years. Engineer Park Jiho was practically bouncing in his chair as he listened to the alien threats. "Did you hear their weapon specifications?" he asked his team. "This is going to be so much fun." Dr. Yoon Hana, the fleet's expert on alien life, was taking notes as fast as she could. "Look at their ship design," she whispered to her assistant. "It's so traditional. I wonder if they've ever seen anything like our setup." The aliens noticed this strange behavior through their scanners. Every human ship was buzzing with activity, but not the panicked kind they expected. The humans seemed excited. Happy even. "War Commander," said one of his officers, "the humans are not responding normally to our threats." Thektar could see that. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that reacted to overwhelming force with what appeared to be joy. "Perhaps they do not understand the situation," he said. "Show them our weapons." The alien fleet powered up their massive guns. Energy readings spiked across all their sensors. Enough firepower to crack a planet lit up the darkness of space on a... The human ships' alarms started beeping as their computers detected the energy buildup. Most crews would be terrified. The humans just smiled wider. "Oh, look at that," Admiral Kang said as he watched the display. "They're showing off now. How polite of them." The war commander tried one more time. "Humans, you see our power. This is your final chance to surrender." Admiral Kang finally activated his own transmitter. Thektar found himself looking at a middle-aged human male with kind eyes and the biggest smile he had ever seen. "War Commander Thektar," Kang said in a warm, friendly voice. "Thank you for the demonstration. Very impressive. We're ready when you are." The alien stared at the human admiral. "Ready for what?" Kang's smile somehow got even bigger. "Ready to see what happens next, of course." War Commander Thektar had conquered 47 worlds in his career. He knew fear when he saw it. He knew anger and desperation and the look of beings who realized they were about to die. What he saw on the human faces confused him completely. They were all smiling, not just one or two of them. Every single human he could see on his communication screens had the same expression. Some smiled bigger than others, but they all looked like they were enjoying themselves. "This is not normal behavior," said his science officer, a tall Vorthak named Krelnoth. "Most species show signs of stress when faced with superior firepower." Thektar watched as the human called Admiral Kang spoke with his crew. The alien could not hear their words, but he could see their faces. The humans were actually laughing with each other. "Run a scan on their ships," Thektar ordered. "Check for psychological weapons or mind control devices." The scans came back clean. No unusual energy signatures. No signs of advanced technology that could explain the humans' strange behavior. Their ships looked primitive, almost crude compared to Vorthak engineering. On the human ship Soul's Pride, Captain Lee was having the time of her life. She walked around her bridge, checking on her crew and grinning at their readings. "Captain," said her weapons officer, "they have enough firepower to blow us up 100 times over." "I know," Lee said happily. "Isn't it wonderful? When was the last time we faced a real challenge?" Her crew exchanged glances. Their captain was acting like someone who had just won the lottery, not someone who was about to be blasted into space dust. Engineer Park Ji-ho was studying the alien ship designs on his screen. Every few seconds he would chuckle and shake his head. His assistant finally asked what was so funny. "Look at their weapon placement," Park said, pointing at his display. "It's so textbook, like they read a manual on how to build a warship and followed it exactly. Is that bad?" "Not bad," Park said with a huge grin. "Just predictable." Dr. Yoon Hana was even more excited than the engineers. She had spent her whole career studying alien life through old signals and distant observations. Now she had real aliens right in front of her with their weapons pointed at her ship. She could barely contain her excitement. "Look at their bone structure," she said to her research team. "And those extra arms. The muscle development suggests a high-gravity homeworld. This is amazing." Her assistant looked worried. "Doctor, they're threatening to kill us." "I know," Yoon said with delight. "We're making history here." Back on the alien flagship, Thektar was getting reports from his other ships. Every Vorthak captain was saying the same thing. The humans were not acting right. They should be scared or angry or trying to run away. Instead, they seemed to be having a party. "War Commander," said his communications officer, "the humans are sending messages between their ships." "What are they saying?" "We cannot translate everything, but our computers are picking up what sounds like jokes." Thektar's 4 eyes widened. "Jokes?" "Yes, sir. They appear to be making fun of something." The war commander felt something he had never experienced before during a conquest. Doubt. These humans were either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most insane. Either way, they were not reacting the way they should. "Perhaps they do not understand our language properly," suggested Krelnoth. "Maybe they think we are here to trade or explore." Thektar decided to try again. He opened a channel to all human ships and made his voice as threatening as possible. "Humans, you seem confused about your situation. Let me be clear. We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 847 worlds. We have destroyed entire civilizations. You have small ships and primitive weapons. You cannot win. Surrender now, or we will show you the same mercy we showed the Cretans." "Admiral," Kang responded immediately. His face appeared on the main screen, and he was still smiling that same warm, friendly smile. War Commander, we understand you perfectly. 847 worlds is very impressive. You must have some wonderful stories. Stories. Thektar could not believe what he was hearing. Oh yes, Kang said. We love a good conquest. Tale. The Crichtons, you mentioned them. What happened there? The alien war commander stared at the human admiral. This creature was asking about military campaigns like they were discussing the weather. We destroyed their entire fleet in 3 hours, Thektar said slowly. 3 hours? Kang looked genuinely impressed. That is quite efficient. What kind of resistance did they put up? Thektar felt like he was losing his mind. They fought bravely, but their technology was no match for ours. I see. Kang nodded thoughtfully. And after the fleet was destroyed, their planet surrendered immediately. Smart of them, Kang said. No point in throwing away lives once the outcome is clear. The war commander waited for the human to surrender as well. Instead, Admiral Kang seemed to be thinking about something. War Commander, Kang said finally, I have a question for you. What? In all these conquests, did you ever fight anyone who fought back effectively? Thektar paused. Most species either surrendered quickly or were destroyed quickly. There had been very few real battles. Some put up resistance, he said carefully. But did any of them surprise you? Do something unexpected? The alien war commander thought about this. The answer was no. Every conquest had followed the same pattern. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, destroy any resistance, claim the world. No, he admitted. Most species are predictable. Admiral Kang's smile got even bigger. How boring that must be for you. On his bridge, Thektar's officers looked at each other in confusion. The human was feeling sorry for them. During a conquest? War Commander, Kang continued. How long has it been since you had a real challenge? Something that made you think? Made you work for victory? Thektar found himself actually considering the question. It had been years since any enemy had surprised him. Decades since he had faced an opponent that required real strategy. It has been some time, he said. That must be frustrating, Kang said with what sounded like genuine sympathy. All that training and preparation, and then every fight is the same. The human admiral was right, and that bothered Thektar more than he wanted to admit. Conquest had become routine, boring even. What are you suggesting? The war commander asked. Kang's expression became even more cheerful. I'm suggesting that today might be different. Different how? Well, Kang said, and his eyes sparkled with something that looked like mischief. We humans have a saying. We like to think outside the box. I do not understand this expression. It means we do things differently, unexpectedly. We solve problems in ways that other people don't think of. Thektar felt a chill run down his spine. You cannot defeat us with creative thinking. We have superior numbers and firepower. Oh, I'm sure you do, Kang agreed pleasantly. Your ships are very impressive, much bigger than ours. Then you will surrender? Admiral Kang looked thoughtful for a moment. Then he smiled that same impossible smile and said something that would haunt Thektar's dreams for the rest of his life. War Commander, size isn't everything. The communication ended, leaving the alien staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew stood in uncomfortable silence. "Sir," his weapons officer said quietly. "What are your orders?" Thektar looked at the small human fleet on his tactical display. 12 tiny ships against his massive battle group. It should be simple. It should be easy. So why did he suddenly feel like he was the one in danger? Science Officer Krell Noth finished running detailed scans on the human fleet and stared at his results in disbelief. The numbers made no sense. According to his instruments, the human ships should not even be able to fly. "War Commander," he said, slowly, "you need to see this." Thektar walked over to the science station. The data on the screen looked like a joke. "These readings cannot be correct." "I have run the scans 3 times, Krell Noth said. "The human ships appear to be held together with primitive metal patches and some kind of adhesive strips." Adhesive strips? Their own crew calls it duct tape, sir. Our computers do not understand how it works. Thektar looked at the visual scans of the human vessels. Sure enough, he could see silver strips wrapped around various parts of the ships. Some areas looked like they had been welded by someone using their feet instead of their hands. "What about their power systems?" he asked. Krell Noth pulled up another screen. "This is where it gets strange, sir. Their energy output readings are impossible." "Impossible how?" "According to our scans, some of their engines are producing more power than their fuel systems should be able to provide. It violates basic physics." On the human ship called Busan's Hope, Chief Engineer Kim Do-hyun was having a wonderful day. He loved it when his engines ran smoothly, and today everything was working perfectly. Well, mostly perfectly. The number 3 reactor was making that humming sound again, but a few good hits with his favorite wrench would fix that. "Chief," called his assistant, "the aliens are scanning us pretty hard." "Let them look," Kim said cheerfully. "Maybe they'll learn something." He walked over to the problem reactor and gave it 3 solid whacks with his wrench. The humming stopped immediately, and the power output increased by 5%. "Works every time," he said with satisfaction. His assistant watched this with amazement. "Chief, how does hitting it make it work better?" Kim shrugged. "Machines have feelings too. Sometimes they just need a little encouragement." On another ship, Technician Choi Nari was having similar success with the navigation computer. It had been acting up all morning, giving wrong coordinates and displaying error messages in 3 different languages. But Nari knew exactly how to fix it. She opened the access panel, found the main processing unit, and gave it a firm tap with the palm of her hand. The error messages disappeared, and the computer started working perfectly. "There you go," she said to the machine. "Much better." Her supervisor, who had been watching, shook his head in amazement. "Nari, that should not work." "But it does work," she said with a grin. "That's what matters." Back on the alien flagship, Krell Noth was getting more confused by the minute. His instruments kept detecting impossible things happening on the human ships. "War Commander," he said. "Their crew appears to be repairing equipment by hitting it with tools." "That is ridiculous. Advanced technology does not work that way." "I am watching it happen, sir. Look at this." On the main screen, they could see inside one of the human ships. A woman in overalls was standing next to a large machine that was sparking and making unhappy noises. She picked up a metal rod and struck the machine twice. The sparking stopped, the noises went away, and the machine's display showed that it was now running at optimal efficiency. Thektar stared at this impossible scene. "How is that possible?" "I do not know, sir. Our technology does not respond to physical impacts. It usually breaks when you hit it." "Maybe their machines are made differently," suggested the weapons officer. On the screen, they watched as another human engineer approached a control panel that was flashing red warning lights. He looked at it for a moment, then kicked it gently with his boot. All the warning lights turned green. "This is not engineering," Thektar said. "This is magic." Chief Engineer Kim was enjoying all the attention from the alien scanners. He decided to give them a real show. He walked over to the main power coupling, which had been running a little hot lately, and began what he called his maintenance routine. First, he hit it 3 times with his wrench. Then he gave it a few gentle kicks. Next, he opened a panel and jiggled some wires that looked loose. Finally, he closed his eyes, put his hand on the machine, and seemed to listen to something only he could hear. "Come on, old friend," he said quietly. "Show these aliens what humans can do." The power coupling responded by increasing its output by 15% while running cooler than it had in months. On the alien ship, alarms started. "Going off." "Sir," said the sensor operator, "the human ship just increased its power output significantly." "How?" "The engineer appears to have spoken to the machine." Thektar felt a headache coming on. "Machines do not respond to conversation. These ones seem to, sir." Dr. Yoon Hana was monitoring the alien confusion from her laboratory. As the fleet's xenobiologist, she was fascinated by how the Vorthak minds worked. They seemed to think in very straight lines. If A, then B. If C, then D. They could not understand that humans had learned to make A equal Z through creative thinking. "They're getting frustrated," she reported to Admiral Kang. "Their computers keep saying our technology shouldn't work." "But it does work," Kang replied with amusement. "That's what's driving them crazy." Engineer Park Ji-ho was having the most fun of anyone. He had been watching the alien scans and decided to really confuse them. He went to his favorite piece of equipment, a sensor array that he had built himself from spare parts. The array looked like it had been assembled by someone who had never seen proper engineering before. Wires stuck out in random directions. Parts from at least 6 different machines were bolted together in ways that should not work. The whole thing was held in place with duct tape and what appeared to be chewing gum. Park activated the array and began scanning the alien fleet. Immediately, his instruments began providing detailed information about Vorthak ship construction, weapon systems, and crew positions. On the enemy flagship, every alarm on the bridge started screaming. "What is happening?" Thektar demanded. "The humans are scanning us, sir," said his sensor officer. "But they're getting information that should be impossible to detect." "How impossible?" "They know how many crew members we have on each ship. They know what we had for breakfast. They know that Officer Vektar in Sector 7 is thinking about his mate back home." Thektar looked at the readings his own instruments were providing about the human scanning device. According to his computers, the machine the humans were using could not possibly work. It violated at least 12 laws of physics and seemed to be held together with materials that his database did not recognize. "Sir," said Krelnoth quietly, "I think we may have underestimated these humans." "How so?" "They appear to have developed technology that works on principles we do not understand. Their machines respond to physical manipulation and verbal commands. They build devices from random parts that somehow function better than our precision-engineered equipment." Thektar watched as another human engineer fixed a broken console by singing to it. The machine responded by working better than before. "This is not possible," he said. "And yet we are watching it happen," Krelnoth replied. On the human ships, the crews were enjoying the alien confusion. They had always known their engineering methods were unusual, but seeing highly advanced aliens struggle to understand basic human maintenance techniques was hilarious. Should we tell them about the rubber band and paperclip drive? Asked one technician. Not yet, Kim replied with a grin. Let them figure out the duct tape first. Technician Choi Nari was demonstrating advanced human repair techniques by fixing a communications array using nothing but a coat hanger and some creative wire twisting. The alien scanners were probably going crazy trying to figure out how it worked. The secret, she explained to her trainee, is to think like the machine. What does it want? What would make it happy? But it's just a machine, the trainee said. That's what the aliens think too, Nari replied with a knowing smile. That's why they'll never understand us. War Commander Thektar stared at the human, fleet, and felt something he had never experienced before in his military career. These small, primitive-looking ships were demonstrating technology that his scientists claimed was impossible. Their crews fixed advanced equipment by hitting it with tools and talking to it like it was alive. Worst of all, it was working. War Commander, his communications officer said carefully, should we proceed with the attack? Thektar looked at his tactical display. His fleet still had overwhelming firepower advantage. His ships were still much larger and better armed. But somehow, for the first time in his career, he was not sure that would be enough. Hold position, he ordered. I want to understand what we're dealing with first. On the human flagship, Admiral Kang smiled and patted his command console affectionately. Did you hear that, old girl? He said to his ship. They want to understand us better. The ship's computer responded by playing a few notes of an old Earth song through the bridge speakers, as if it was chuckling along with its captain. The tension in space was getting thicker by the minute, but somehow the humans seemed to find this even more amusing. War Commander Thektar had never seen anything like it in his long military career. On the human ship Soul's Pride, Captain Lee was walking around her bridge with a spring in her step that made her crew grin despite their dangerous situation. Every few minutes, she would stop at a station and check on her people, and every time she smiled a little bigger. Captain, said her navigation officer, the aliens have been holding position for 20 minutes now. They're not attacking. I noticed, Lee said cheerfully. They're probably trying to figure us out. Is that good or bad? Lee thought about this for a moment, then started giggling. I have no idea, but it's definitely interesting. Her communications officer, a young man named Han Woo-jin, was monitoring alien transmissions and having trouble controlling himself. Every few seconds he would snort with laughter and have to cover his mouth. What's so funny, Woo-jin? Lee asked. Captain, they're talking to each other about us. Their officers keep asking their science teams to explain how our ships work. And their science teams keep saying it's impossible. Han lost his composure completely and burst out laughing. They're getting really frustrated, Lee joined in the laughter. Soon, half her bridge crew was chuckling along with them. On the alien flagship, this behavior was being carefully monitored. Thektar watched the human bridge through his surveillance systems and felt his confusion growing. They are laughing, he said to no one in particular. Yes, sir, replied his communications officer. Our psychological analysis computers cannot determine why. What do the computers suggest? The main possibility is that they are suffering from a form of mass hysteria brought on by extreme stress. Thektar considered this. It made sense. Facing certain death could break anyone's mind. But these humans did not look broken. They looked like they were having the best day of their lives. Navigator Oh Sunwoo was having exactly that kind of day. She loved her job on the human ship, Daejeon's dream, and today was providing challenges she had never faced before. Flying. In formation, while being watched by hostile aliens required skills she had been waiting years to use. "Sun Wu," called her captain. "How are we doing?" "Perfectly, sir," she replied with a huge grin. "Want to see something fun?" Before her captain could respond, Sun Wu executed a complex maneuver that made their ship dance between two of its sister vessels in a pattern that looked almost like a greeting wave. On the Vorthak flagship, alarms started beeping. "Sir," said the tactical officer, "the human ships are moving in formation patterns we do not recognize." Thektar watched as the small human fleet began performing what looked like an elaborate dance in space. Ships weaved in and out of formation, spinning and diving in ways that seemed to serve no tactical purpose. "Are they trying to confuse us?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. Our computers cannot identify any strategic advantage to these movements. What the aliens did not understand was that Navigator Sun Wu was showing off. She had spent years practicing complex flight patterns, and now she had an audience of alien military experts watching her every move. "Look at this," she said to her crew as she made their ship perform a perfect loop around two other vessels without disturbing their formation. "I've been wanting to try that for months." Her crewmates cheered and applauded. The sound carried over the communication channels to other human ships, where it was met with more laughter and encouragement. Dr. Yoon Hana was monitoring alien stress levels through their ship's sensors and found the results fascinating. The Vorthak crew was showing signs of increasing anxiety, while the human crews were displaying what could only be described as joy. "Admiral," she reported to Kang, "the aliens are getting nervous." "Nervous about what?" Kang asked with interest. "Us, sir. Their heart rates are elevated, their stress hormones are spiking, and their communication patterns suggest confusion and growing concern." Kang chuckled. "Poor things. They probably thought this would be simple." On the alien flagship, Thektar was indeed finding the situation far from simple. His psychological warfare experts had no idea how to handle opponents who seemed to enjoy being threatened. "War Commander," said his science officer, "we have completed our analysis of human behavior patterns." "What did you find?" "They appear to be treating this encounter as a form of entertainment." Thektar stared at his officer. "Entertainment?" "Yes, sir. All indicators suggest they are having fun." "Fun? We are threatening to destroy them." "That seems to be what they find amusing." "Sir!" The war commander felt his four hands clench into fists. This was not how conquests were supposed to work. Enemies were supposed to be afraid, not entertained. Communications Officer Han Woo-jin was still monitoring alien transmissions when something made him laugh so hard he fell out of his chair. Captain Lee rushed over to see what was wrong. "Woo-jin, what happened?" "Captain," he gasped between fits of laughter, "they just ordered their psychological warfare team to begin advanced intimidation protocols." "What does that mean?" Han wiped tears from his eyes. "They're going to try to scare us harder." This news spread through the human fleet in minutes. Soon, every ship was buzzing with anticipation. Advanced intimidation protocols sounded like it was going to be even. More fun than regular threats. Engineer Park Ji-ho was so excited he started taking bets on what the aliens would try next. "I'm betting they'll threaten to blow up a moon or something," he said to his team. 10 credits says they'll show us pictures of destroyed planets, countered his assistant. 20 credits says they'll try the old resistance is futile speech, added another technician. The betting pool grew quickly as more crew members joined in. Soon, humans throughout the fleet were placing wagers on alien behavior patterns. Vectar activated his advanced intimidation protocols with great ceremony. His bridge dimmed to create a more menacing atmosphere. Holographic displays showed images of destroyed worlds and conquered civilizations. Dramatic music began playing in the background. "Humans," he began in his most terrifying voice, "behold the fate of those who oppose the Vorthak Empire." The screens filled with images of burning cities and shattered fleets, planets cracked in half by Vorthak weapons, entire species bowing in submission before alien conquerors. "Your worlds will burn," Thektar continued. "Your people will serve. Your ships will be scrap metal floating in the void. This is the price of defiance." He waited for the human response. Surely now they would understand the hopelessness of their situation. Admiral Kang's face appeared on the communication screen. He was still smiling, but now he looked genuinely impressed. "War Commander, that was magnificent. The lighting effects alone must have taken weeks to prepare." Vectar blinked all four eyes in confusion. "Lighting effects? Oh yes, very dramatic. And the music? Who composed that? It's quite stirring. You enjoyed our intimidation display?" "Absolutely," Kang said with enthusiasm. "We humans love a good show, don't we, everyone?" Behind the Admiral, his bridge crew burst into applause. They were actually clapping for the alien threats. The destroyed planet imagery was particularly impressive, Captain Lee added over the communication channel. "Very realistic. Did you use computer graphics or practical effects?" Vectar felt something inside his mind break a little bit. "Those were real planets. We actually destroyed them." "Even better," said Engineer Park from another ship. "Method acting. You really committed to the role." The human betting pools were paying out all over the fleet. Someone had correctly predicted that the aliens would use dramatic lighting and scary music as their intimidation tactic. "I told you they'd go for the classic approach," Park said as he collected his winnings. "These aliens are so traditional." Dr. Yoon was analyzing the alien psychological profiles and finding them fascinating. "Admiral," she reported, "their intimidation protocols appear to be based on standard fear responses. They assume all species will react to threats the same way." "How limited," Kang replied with sympathy. "They must meet very boring enemies." On the Vorthak flagship, officers were staring at their instruments in disbelief. Instead of increasing human stress levels, their advanced intimidation protocols had actually made the humans happier. "Sir," said the psychological warfare specialist, "our intimidation attempts are having the opposite effect. The humans appear to be enjoying them." Thektar slumped in his command chair. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this. These humans were treating his most fearsome weapons as entertainment. "What do we do now?" asked his second-in-command. Thektar looked at the small human fleet on his display. 12 tiny ships full of creatures who found threats amusing and fixed their technology by talking to it and hitting it with tools. "I honestly do not know," he admitted. War Commander Thektar made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. After an hour of watching humans treat his threats like entertainment, he decided the only way to end this madness was to attack. "All ships," he commanded, "prepare for battle. We will show these humans what happens when you mock the Vorthak Empire." His fleet powered up their weapons. Massive energy cannons that could crack moons swiveled toward the human vessels. Missile ports opened like hungry mouths, the space around them filled with enough destructive power to level continents. On the human ships, alarms began sounding as their sensors detected the weapon locks. "Well, said Admiral Kang to his bridge crew. "I think playtime is over." His crew did not look scared. If anything, they looked more excited than before. Navigation Officer Kim Sulgi cracked her knuckles and grinned at her controls. "Admiral, should I begin evasive maneuvers?" she asked. "In a moment," Kang replied. "Let's see what they try first." The first Vorthak salvo was designed to destroy the human fleet in a single coordinated strike. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked through space toward the 12 human ships. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations, assuming anyone survived to write about it. The human ships simply were not there anymore. Captain Shin Tae-hyung of the ship Incheon's Fury had been waiting his whole career for a moment like this. As the alien weapons fired, he activated his ship's systems and did something that made the universe itself seem to hiccup. His ship folded space around itself and stepped sideways through dimensions that had no names. In the time it took for an alien energy beam to travel 1 meter, Incheon's Fury had moved 3,000 kilometers and was now behind the enemy formation. The other human ships performed similar impossible maneuvers. Some seemed to turn inside out and reappear somewhere else. Others flickered like old video signals and became multiple copies of themselves before converging back into a single vessel in a completely different location. One ship, the Gwangju's Hope, appeared to turn into pure energy for a split second, before rematerializing as a solid object again. On the Vorthak flagship, every alarm in the ship was screaming. "What just happened?" Thektar demanded. "Sir," his tactical officer said in a voice that cracked with stress, "the human ships moved." "I can see that. How did they move?" "Unknown, sir. Our sensors show they were in 12 different locations." "Then they were in 12 different locations." "That is impossible." "Yes, sir. That's what our computers keep saying." Science Officer Krell Noth was staring at his instruments like they had betrayed him personally. "War Commander, according to our readings, the human ships briefly stopped existing in normal space-time." "What does that mean?" "I have no idea, sir." Captain Shin was humming an old Earth song as he piloted his ship through what humans called a tactical dance. His vessel moved through space in patterns that would make a mathematician weep with joy. He was combining 3-dimensional movement with 4-dimensional shortcuts and a few tricks that existed in dimensions that normal physics pretended did not exist. "Captain," said his weapons officer, "we're getting target locks on 6 enemy ships." "Excellent," Shin replied cheerfully. "Let's show them what human weapons look like." Weapons Officer Jang Minji had been waiting for this moment since joining the fleet. She activated her weapon systems and felt a familiar thrill as the ship's armaments came online. The humans had learned long ago that bigger was not always better. While the Vorthak built massive guns that could destroy planets, humans had developed weapons that were much more creative. "Firing probability cannons," Minji announced. The weapons that emerged from the human ships were unlike anything the Vorthak had ever seen. Instead of simple energy beams or missiles, the humans fired weapons that seemed to rewrite reality itself. One alien ship found itself suddenly 3 minutes in the past, giving the humans time to shoot it before it knew it was under attack. Another discovered that its shields were now protecting the human ships instead of its own hull. A third Vorthak vessel experienced what the humans called a causality inversion. It was destroyed by weapons that would not be fired for another 30 seconds. "This is impossible!" Thektar shouted over the chaos on his bridge. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "our ships are being attacked by weapons that do not exist yet." "How do we defend against weapons that have not been fired?" Our computers are requesting we ask the humans for an instruction manual. The battle, if it could be called that, continued for exactly 7 minutes and 32 seconds. In that time, the human fleet demonstrated technologies that violated so many laws of physics that several alien computers simply gave up and displayed error messages in languages that had not been invented yet. Captain Lee's ship, Soul's Pride, performed a maneuver that her crew called the impossible turn. The ship rotated around an axis that did not exist while moving forward, backward, and sideways simultaneously. The alien weapons trying to track her got so confused that they started shooting each other. "How are we doing this?" asked her navigation. "Officer, simple," Lee replied with a grin. "We're thinking outside the box." "What box?" "The one that says space has to work the way everyone thinks it does." Engineer Park Ji-ho was having the time of his life managing his ship's weapon systems. Human weapons were powered by what he called aggressive optimism, and the sincere belief that physics was more like a suggestion than a law. "Park," his captain called, "can you get us more power for the reality adjusters?" "No problem," Park replied. He walked over to his main power coupling and had a friendly conversation with it. "Come on, old friend. These aliens think they know how the universe works. Let's show them how wrong they are." The power coupling responded by increasing output to levels that should have melted every component in the system. Instead, it hummed happily and somehow convinced the ship's engines to work better than they ever had before. On the alien flagship, Thektar was watching his fleet get systematically outmaneuvered by ships that should not have been able to move. The way they were moving. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "we are detecting weapons impacts from the human ships." "Where are they hitting us?" "Last Tuesday, sir." Thektar stared at his officer. "What?" "The humans appear to have shot us last Tuesday. The damage is just arriving now." "That makes no sense." "No, sir. But our hull breach sensors are reporting holes that were not there yesterday but have somehow always been there." Dr. Yoon was monitoring the battle from her science station and taking notes as fast as she could write. This was the first time humans had used their full technological capabilities in combat, and the results were fascinating. "Admiral," she reported, "the aliens are experiencing what we might call paradigm shock." "Explain," Kang said, as he watched another enemy ship discover that its own weapons were now firing harmless flowers instead of energy beams. They built their entire military philosophy around conventional physics. They cannot adapt to weapons and tactics that work outside normal space-time. How are they handling it? Not well. I'm detecting high levels of confusion, frustration, and what appears to be existential crisis among their crew. The human ships continued their impossible dance through space. They moved like thoughts instead of objects, striking from directions that did not exist and defending themselves with weapons that convinced enemy attacks they did not want to cause damage. "Sir," Communications Officer Han reported from his station, "the aliens are trying to surrender." Admiral Kang looked surprised. "Already? We've barely started." They sent a message saying, "Please stop making our reality optional." Kang chuckled. "I suppose we have been a bit hard on their understanding of physics." The battle ended when the last Vorthak ship fired a weapon that somehow convinced itself it was actually a peaceful diplomatic message. The missile turned into a bouquet of flowers halfway to its target and gently bounced off the human ship's hull. Thektar sat in his command chair and stared at the tactical display. His fleet was still intact, mostly. None of his ships had been destroyed. But somehow, the humans had demonstrated that they could have destroyed his entire force whenever they wanted to. His weapons were useless. His shields were decorative. His engines might as well have been powered by wishful thinking compared to whatever the humans were using. War Commander, his communications officer said quietly. The humans are requesting permission to come aboard. Why? They say they would like to discuss terms for peace. Thektar laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Peace? After what they just did to us? Sir, said Science Officer Krelnoth, I believe they are being merciful. If they had wanted to destroy us, we would already be destroyed in ways we could not comprehend. The war commander looked at his crew. They were all staring at him with expressions that mixed fear, confusion, and a new emotion he had never seen before in Vorthak. Eyes, respect, open communications, he ordered. Let us hear what the humans have to say. Admiral Kong's face appeared on the main screen of the Vorthak flagship, and for the first time since this encounter began, he was not smiling. Instead, he looked almost apologetic. War Commander Thektar, he said in a gentle voice, I believe we owe you an explanation. Thektar found himself leaning forward in his command chair. After what he had just witnessed, he was desperate for any explanation that might help him understand what had happened. Please, he said simply. Kang nodded and seemed to choose his words carefully. War Commander, how long have your people been monitoring Earth communications? The question caught Thektar off guard. We have not been monitoring Earth. We only detected your ships when they entered this system. Ah, Kang said, and his expression became sympathetic. That explains a lot. Explains what? Why you thought this would be easy. On his bridge, Kang turned to Dr. Yoon Hana, who stepped forward with a datapad in her hands. She looked excited, but also a little embarrassed. War Commander, she said, we have been monitoring your communications for approximately 6 months. Thektar felt cold all over. 6 months? Yes. Your empire uses fairly standard encryption methods. Our computers broke your codes in about 3 hours. Science Officer Krelnoth made a choking sound. 3 hours? Our encryption is military grade. Dr. Yoon looked apologetic. I'm sorry, but it really was not very difficult. We initially thought it might be a training exercise or perhaps communications meant for children. Impossible! I can show you the decryption algorithms if you would like. Yoon offered helpfully. We wrote them during a lunch break. Admiral Kang gestured for Dr. Yoon to continue. She consulted her datapad and began reading. Over the past 6 months, we have monitored 2,147 military communications, 15,632 administrative messages, and 4,991 personal letters between your fleet personnel and their families. Thektar's face went through several colors. You read our personal mail? Only to understand your culture better, Yoon said quickly. We found your poetry quite beautiful, by the way. Officer Vektar has real talent. The mentioned officer turned, purple with embarrassment from his station at the back of the bridge. But more importantly, Admiral Kang continued, we learned about your military capabilities, your conquest record, and your current situation. What situation? Thektar asked, though he was beginning to suspect he did not want to know the answer. Captain. Lee's voice joined the conversation from her ship. War Commander, when was the last time your fleet received a supply shipment? The question hit Thektar like a physical blow. That is classified information. 4 months ago, Dr. Yoon said gently, reading from her data. And it was only half the supplies you requested because of budget constraints back home. How could you possibly know that? Your logistics officer sent a very detailed complaint letter to his wife about it. He mentioned that your ships are running low on everything from food to weapon power cells. Engineer Park Jiho's voice crackled over the communication system. Also, your plasma conduits need maintenance that you cannot perform without parts. You do not have. Thektar slumped in his chair. This was turning into the worst day of his military career. Furthermore, Admiral Kang said, we learned about your recent military campaigns. What about them? Captain Shin's cheerful voice joined in. Well, for example, your conquest of the Krytan system. We destroyed their fleet in 3 hours. Yes, Shin agreed. All 2 ships of it. The alien bridge fell silent. War Commander, Dr. Yoon said with genuine sympathy. The Krytans had a total population of about 50,000 people and no military to speak of. They surrendered because they were confused about why anyone would want their planet, which consists mostly of radioactive sand. Thektar felt something die inside him. But they were marked as a strategic conquest. By who? Asked Admiral Kang. By Central Command. Central Command, which, according to your own communications, consists of 12 bureaucrats who have not left their home planet in 30 years and get most of their strategic information from adventure novels. The War Commander put his head in his 4 hands. Everything was falling apart. Engineer Kim's voice came over the speakers, and he sounded almost apologetic. War Commander, we also know about your weapons. What about our weapons? They are 3 generations behind what most civilizations are using these days. Your energy cannons are based on designs that were obsolete before humans even left Earth. That cannot be true. I'm afraid it is, Dr. Yoon said gently. Your technology base appears to have stagnated about 200 years ago. You have been conquering primitive worlds with outdated equipment. Communications Officer Han added his own devastating observation. Also, most of the worlds you have conquered were uninhabited. What? Of your 847 claimed conquests, only 38 actually had intelligent life on them. The rest were empty planets that you claimed and then forgot about. Thektar felt his world view crumbling around him. But we are the mighty Vorthok Empire. You are 12 ships with outdated technology, run by a government that has not fought a real war in centuries, Admiral Kang said, but his voice was kind. Your empire exists mostly on paper. The human admiral stood up and walked closer to his communication screen. War Commander, would you like to know why we were smiling? Thektar nodded weakly. Because we have been alone in space for 50 years. We have not met another intelligent species in all that time. When you appeared and demanded our surrender, we were not scared. We were excited. Excited? Finally, we thought, someone to talk to, someone who might be interesting, someone who might challenge us or teach us something new. Captain Lee laughed softly. We were hoping for new friends, not another conquest. But you attacked us, Thektar protested. We defended ourselves, corrected Admiral Kang, and we tried very hard not to hurt anyone. Did you notice that none of your ships were destroyed? Thektar looked at his tactical display. It was true. His fleet was intact, just thoroughly outmaneuvered and confused. We could have ended this fight in 30 seconds, Engineer Park said matter-of-factly. We have weapons that could turn your entire fleet into flower petals, but we did not want to hurt anyone. We wanted to understand you, added Dr. Yoon. We were hoping you might be interesting neighbors, but instead, Admiral Kang continued with obvious disappointment, we found an empire that exists mostly in its own imagination, run by people who have forgotten how to think creatively. The silence on the Vorthak bridge stretched for long minutes. Finally, Thektar found his voice. "So what happens now?" "Now," Admiral Kang said, and his smile returned. "We talk. We learn about each other. We figure out how to be friends instead of enemies." "But we attacked you." "You tried to attack us," Captain Shin corrected cheerfully. "There is a difference." "Besides," added Engineer Kim, "your weapons could not have hurt us anyway. Our shields are powered by quantum uncertainty and aggressive optimism. Your energy beams would just make us shinier." Science Officer Krelnoth looked up from his instruments. "War Commander, they are not lying. According to our scans, their shield technology operates on principles that our computers cannot even recognize." "How is that possible?" Thektar asked. "Easy," said Dr. Yoon with a grin. "We think differently than you do. Where you see limits, we see suggestions. Where you see impossible, we see Tuesday afternoon. Would you like to come aboard one of our ships?" Admiral Kang offered. "We can show you how human technology works. It might be educational." Thektar looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at him with expressions of curiosity mixed with fear. For the first time in his career, he had encountered something completely outside his experience. "Will it be safe?" he asked. "Perfectly safe," Kang assured him. "We promise not to accidentally fold you into extra dimensions or convince your molecules that they would rather be somewhere else." "You can do that?" "We try not to," Captain Lee said with a laugh. "It makes diplomatic meetings very awkward." War Commander Thektar made what might have been the bravest decision of his life. "Very well," he said. "I will come aboard your ship." "Excellent!" Admiral Kang clapped his hands together. "This is going to be so much fun. Wait until you see. Our coffee machine. It operates on pure stubbornness and has never made a bad cup." War Commander Thektar's shuttle approached the human flagship with all the confidence of a leaf floating toward a black hole. As he got closer to the ship called Earth's Dream, he began to understand why his scanners had been so confused. The human vessel looked like it had been designed by someone who had never seen a spaceship before, but had heard one described by a child. Parts of it seemed to be held on with what he now knew was called duct tape. Other sections appeared to have been welded on as afterthoughts, but the energy readings coming from this impossible ship were beyond anything in his experience. "War Commander," his pilot said nervously, "their docking bay is unusual." Thektar looked through the shuttle's viewport and saw what his pilot meant. The human docking bay seemed to shift and change as they watched. What had been a simple opening a moment ago was now somehow larger on the inside than it was on the outside. "Just land wherever they tell us to," he said wearily. "Nothing about these humans makes sense anyway." The shuttle touched down with surprising gentleness. As the engines shut down, Thektar could hear music playing somewhere in the distance. It sounded cheerful and welcoming, not like the military marches he was used to. Admiral Kang was waiting for them at the airlock, and he was still smiling that impossible smile. Behind him stood several other humans, all looking equally pleased. "To have visitors! War Commander!" Kang said warmly as Thektar emerged from his shuttle. "Welcome aboard Earth's Dream. I hope your flight was comfortable." Thektar looked around the docking bay in amazement. The walls seemed to be covered with paintings of distant worlds and star fields. Some of the images moved slightly when he was not looking directly at them. "Your ship is different than I expected," he said carefully. "Thank you," replied Engineer Kim. who was standing nearby with what appeared to be a cup of coffee in one hand and a wrench in the other. "We try to make it feel like home." "But how do you make the walls show moving pictures?" Kim shrugged. "We asked them nicely. Turns out ship bulkheads are quite artistic when you give them the chance." As they walked through the corridors of the human ship, Thektar's amazement grew with every step. Nothing worked the way it should. Lights turned on when people approached, but they seemed to brighten based on the mood of whoever was walking by. Doors opened before anyone touched them, and some corridors were clearly longer than the ship itself. "How is this possible?" he asked Admiral Kang. "Simple," Kang replied. "We convinced the ship that geometry is more of a suggestion than a rule." They entered what appeared to be the main conference room. It was larger than Thektar's entire bridge, even though it should have been impossible to fit such a space inside the human ship. Dr. Yoon was waiting for them with charts and displays that showed the comparison between Vorthak and human technology. The differences were not just significant, they were embarrassing. "War Commander," she said gently, "would you like to see how our weapons actually work?" Thektar nodded, though part of him did not want to know. Dr. Yoon activated a holographic display that showed the recent battle from the human perspective. What Thektar saw made him question everything he thought he knew about warfare. "Your fleet fired approximately 2,000 energy weapons at us," she explained. "Our ships detected these attacks and responded by convincing space itself to move our vessels out of the way." "Convincing space?" "We asked it politely," Engineer Park said from across the room. "Space is quite reasonable when you treat it with respect." The hologram showed human ships moving in ways that violated physics, but from the human perspective, it looked perfectly normal. "Your weapons are designed to destroy matter," Dr. Yoon continued. "Our defenses are based on the idea that matter is just energy that has decided to be solid for a while." "So, you convinced our weapons to miss?" "Not exactly. We convinced them that they did not really want to hurt anyone." Thektar sat down heavily in one of the human chairs. It immediately adjusted itself to fit his alien body perfectly and began playing soft music that somehow made him feel more relaxed. "Even your furniture is impossible," he said. "The chairs are very empathetic," Captain Lee explained as she joined the group. "They like to make people comfortable." Admiral Kang sat across from the alien war commander, and his expression became more serious. "Thektar, I want you to understand something important. We did not want to embarrass you or your people, but you did. Yes, and I am sorry about that. But we needed you to understand the situation." "What situation?" "You came here expecting to conquer primitive humans with outdated technology and superior numbers," Dr. Yoon said gently. "Instead, you found humans with technology that operates on principles your science cannot explain." "Why did you not just tell us this from the beginning?" Engineer Kim laughed. "Would you have believed us?" Thektar thought about this. If the humans had simply claimed to have superior technology, he would have assumed they were lying or bluffing. "Probably not," he admitted. "Exactly," Admiral Kang said. "Sometimes you have to show people the truth instead of just telling them." "Captain." Shin entered the conference room carrying what appeared to be a tray of refreshments. The drinks seemed to be floating slightly above the tray, and some of them were glowing softly. "I brought snacks," he announced cheerfully. "The blue ones taste like starlight, and the green ones are caffeinated." "How do you make drinks that taste like starlight?" Thektar asked. "We asked the starlight very nicely if it would share its flavor," Shin replied as if this was perfectly normal. It was quite cooperative. As Thektar sipped the impossible drink, Admiral Kang continued the conversation. War Commander, your empire is not really an empire. Your fleet is outdated and undersupplied. Your conquered worlds are mostly empty rocks. But you know what? What? None of that matters. Thektar looked confused. How can it not matter? Because the important thing is not what you were, Dr. Yoon said with a warm smile. It is what you could become. I do not understand. Engineer Park leaned forward excitedly. Your people have the basic intelligence and curiosity needed to learn. You just got stuck thinking inside the box. What box? The one that says technology has to work the way everyone expects it to, Captain Lee explained. The one that says, you cannot convince machines to work better by being nice to them. The one that says physics cannot be negotiated with, added Engineer Kim. Admiral Kang stood up and walked over to a wall display that showed both fleets. Thektar, what if I told you that your people could learn to build technology like ours? The war commander nearly choked on his starlight drink. That would be impossible. Why? Because you are humans. You think differently? Exactly. Dr. Yoon clapped her hands together. You are starting to understand. Understand what? The secret is not the technology, Admiral Kang said. The secret is learning to think like the universe wants you to think. How? Does the universe want me to think? Creatively, optimistically, with the understanding that rules are meant to be guidelines, not absolute laws. Engineer Park grinned. Plus, it helps if you are willing to have conversations with your equipment. Machines like to feel appreciated. Thektar looked around the room at the impossible humans with their impossible technology and their impossible attitudes. For the first time in his adult life, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. Could you really teach us? He asked quietly. Of course, Admiral Kang said. That is what friends do. They help each other learn and grow. But we attacked. You tried to attack us, Captain Shin corrected gently. And honestly, it was the most interesting thing that has happened to us in months. We have been hoping for years to meet another species that we could share knowledge with, Dr. Yoon added. Someone who could learn from us and teach us new things in return. Thektar felt tears forming in his eyes, which was embarrassing because Vorthak were not supposed to cry. But these humans were offering him something he had never expected to find, a chance to start over, a chance to learn, a chance to become something better than what he had been. What would we have to do? He asked. First, said Admiral Kang, you would have to stop thinking of yourselves as conquerors and start thinking of yourselves as explorers, added Captain Lee. Explorers of technology, of ideas, of possibilities, Engineer Kim continued. Explorers of friendship, Dr. Yoon concluded with a smile. War Commander Thektar looked at his empty cup, which had somehow refilled itself with a different colored drink while he was not paying attention. I think, he said slowly, I would like to try being an explorer instead of a conqueror. The humans in the room broke into applause, and even the walls seemed to glow a little brighter. 6 months later, War Commander Thektar stood on the bridge of his flagship and marveled at how much had changed. The ship still looked mostly the same from the outside, but inside, everything was different. His control panels now responded to voice commands and seemed to anticipate what he needed before he asked for it. His engines ran quieter and more efficiently after Engineer Kim had shown his crew the art of mechanical empathy. Most surprisingly, his coffee machine had learned to make drinks that actually tasted good. Status report, he called to his crew. All systems operating at optimal efficiency, replied his new science officer, a young Vorthak named Jack Lyra, who had spent 3 months learning human engineering methods. The probability drive is stable, and the reality adjusters are functioning within normal parameters. Thektar smiled. 6 months ago, those words would have been meaningless. Now they were part of daily operations. Any word from the human fleet? Admiral Kang's ships are approaching the rendezvous point, said his communications officer. They should arrive within the hour. Today was special. Today they would attempt something that had never been done before in galactic history. They were going to make first contact with a species that had specifically requested to meet both humans and Vorthak together. The Zealot Collective had been monitoring galactic communications for years, watching the rise and fall of various civilizations. When they detected the unusual partnership between humans and Vorthak, they sent a message expressing interest in peaceful contact. They say they want to meet the species that taught another species to think outside the box, Dr. Yoon had explained, when the message first arrived. Apparently, this is considered theoretically impossible by most galactic civilizations. Admiral Kong's voice came over the communication system. Thektar, how are you feeling about today? Nervous, the former war commander admitted. But good nervous. That's the best kind, Kang replied cheerfully. Ready to make some new friends? The past 6 months had been a revelation for both species. The Vorthak had learned that technology could be improved through creativity and optimism rather than just following ancient blueprints. The humans had learned that their unconventional methods could be taught to others, something they had never tried before. Chief Medical Officer Lim Seung-min had spent weeks working with Vorthak doctors to develop medical techniques that combined human innovation with alien physiology. The results had been remarkable. Dr. Lim, Thektar called. How is our patient today? Doing wonderfully, Lim replied from his medical bay. Officer Vektar's injury is healing faster than we expected. Apparently, Vorthak tissue responds very well to treatment machines that are encouraged to work harder. Vektar had been injured in an accident during one of the early technology-sharing experiments. Human medical equipment had not been designed for alien biology, but when Dr. Lim asked the machines to please try their best to help their new friend, the results had exceeded all expectations. The healing ray actually apologized for not working faster, Vektar had reported in amazement. I have never heard medical equipment express concern for patient comfort before. Captain Lee's voice joined the conversation from her ship. Thektar, your people are adapting to human methods faster than we expected. We had good teachers, he replied, though I still do not understand how Technician Choi convinced our navigation computer to develop a sense of humor. She asked it to try being more creative with route calculations. Choi's voice crackled over the radio. Turns out your computers have wonderful personalities once you give them permission to express themselves. The Vorthak navigation computer had indeed developed quite a personality. It now provided running commentary on their journeys and had started making suggestions for scenic routes through space. Contact on long-range sensors, announced Jack Lyra. The Zealot ships are approaching. Thektar looked at his display and whistled in appreciation. The alien vessels were unlike anything he had ever seen. They appeared to be grown rather than built, with organic curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like living tissue. Beautiful, Admiral Kang's voice said over the communication channel. They look like they're part plant, part spaceship. Admiral, Dr. Yoon's excited voice joined in. I'm detecting biomechanical signatures from their ships. I think they've achieved true fusion between living organisms and technology. The lead Zelek ship opened a communication channel, and the main screen filled with the image of a being that looked like a cross between a tree and a philosopher. Its bark-like skin had patterns that seemed to glow with inner light, and its multiple eye clusters focused on both human and Vorthak simultaneously. "Greetings, humans and Vorthak," the being said in a voice like wind through leaves. "I am Sage Engineer Veltana of the Zelek Collective. We have been watching your unique partnership with great interest." "Welcome, Sage Engineer," Admiral Kang replied warmly. "We're honored to meet you." "The honor is ours," Veltana replied. "In our 10,000 years of galactic observation, we have never seen one species successfully teach another to think in fundamentally different ways." Thektar felt a surge of pride. "The humans are excellent teachers. And the Vorthak are excellent students," added Captain Lee. "It turns out that learning to think creatively is easier when you want to change." Veltana's eye clusters brightened with what might have been amusement. "We have analyzed your recent technological achievements. Vorthak ships using human-inspired engineering, human crews collaborating with Vorthak tactical thinking. Most remarkable. Would you like to come aboard?" Admiral Kang offered. "We'd love to show you what we've learned together." "Actually," Veltana said, "we would like to propose something different. We have prepared a demonstration of our own biotechnology. Perhaps we could meet on a neutral space station that we have grown for this occasion." Both human and Vorthak crews exchanged excited glances. A living space station? This was beyond even human engineering creativity. 2 hours later, delegations from all three species met aboard the most incredible structure any of them had ever seen. The Zelek station was clearly alive, with walls that breathed gently and floors that felt warm and welcoming under their feet. Bioluminescent patterns provided light, and the air smelled like a forest after rain. "This is amazing," Engineer Park said, running his hands along a wall that seemed to hum contentedly under his touch. "How did you grow a space station?" "The same way you convince machines to work better," Veltana explained. "We asked the organisms nicely and provided them with everything they needed to thrive. Dr. Yoon was taking readings with instruments that seemed almost crude compared to the elegant biotechnology surrounding them. The integration between living systems and mechanical components is perfect. How long did this take to develop?" "About 3,000 years, replied another Zelek, a smaller being who introduced herself as growth-tender Kirasol. "We are a patient species." Thektar looked around the living station in wonder. "We had never imagined that technology could be alive." "Everything is alive in its own way," Veltana said gently. "Machines, ships, even the computers you speak to so kindly. We simply learn to work with life instead of trying to control it." Engineer Kim's eyes lit up with understanding. "That's why our machines respond to encouragement. They really are alive, just in a different way." "Exactly," Kirasol said with approval. "You humans discovered this instinctively. Most species take millennia to understand what you grasped in decades. As the three species shared knowledge and techniques, something remarkable began to happen. The human ability to think outside conventional limits combined with Vorthak logical analysis and Zelek bioengineering wisdom created possibilities none of them had imagined alone." "Look at this," Dr. Yoon said excitedly, showing her readings to the group. "When we combine human reality adjustment technology with Vorthak tactical computers and Zelek biointegration, we get something entirely new. On her screen, they could see the theoretical framework for what she was calling living space. Technology that grew and adapted, guided by artificial intelligence that was truly alive, all powered by the human ability to convince physics to be more flexible. We could grow ships that heal themselves, Engineer Park said with growing excitement. Ships that learn and adapt to new situations, added Thektar. Ships that are truly partners with their crews, concluded Veltana. 6 months later, the first, jointly designed vessel was completed. It was beautiful beyond description, combining the best aspects of all three technological philosophies. The ship was grown rather than built, but incorporated human reality adjustment systems and Vorthak tactical innovations. When Chief Medical Officer Lim first stepped aboard, the ship greeted him by name and asked if he would like some tea. "It even has good manners," he reported to Admiral Kang with delight. The success of this collaboration spread throughout the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been isolated for centuries began reaching out to the human Vorthak Zelik alliance, curious about this new approach to technology and cooperation. "We're getting contact requests from 17 different civilizations," Communications Officer Han reported during one of their regular three-way conferences. 17? Admiral Kang looked amazed. "What do they want?"